Hey everyone, welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. 99% of traders will never make consistent profits. So why listen to the 99% of advice? On this show, we're going to challenge some of the most hallowed and repeated tenets of trading. And in doing so, set you up to succeed where others fail. Spoiler alert, we don't have a secret strategy or magic wand that will let you skip out on the hard work of learning the markets. But we can debunk viewpoints that are holding you back. If that sounds good to you, come join us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. Do you wish you could make money on the markets like Phil Ivey does playing poker? Well, today's show is for you. In the last episode, we talked about golf. We're kind of in a mini series right now, kind of drawing comparisons between trading, day trading, and different sports and different activities. Last time it was golf. Today we're picking poker. Because day trading is a little bit murky, it's really useful to compare it to some things that people might be a little bit more familiar with. And whether or not you play poker, I think a lot of the lessons that you can learn from poker are going to be a little bit more clear and help draw some lessons. The funny thing is, poker is one of the closest things to day trading that I can think of. So I think today's session is going to be really interesting. Jordan, how you doing?
Hey, doing well. And may I say, Levi, you sound fabulous today, liking the new mic.
Yeah. New mic, very professional. So
Now, this is
I
where I
got
think
I
we need
got
to start singing Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to
no.
hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
I'll stop
Know when to
serenading.
walk away. Know when to run. It applies to day trading a lot, and that was the funny thing. We've talked about this before, but poker is one. We're not huge poker players. We do play. I play every now and then, but when we talk day trading, it is one of the closest things. So it's really useful to draw some comparisons. I think the first thing I would start with when talking about poker is poker. To be a professional poker player, a vanishingly small amount of people can actually make money, and day trading is no similar. It is no different. It's very similar. So when you're talking day trading, you're going to, if you think about it like that, if you think about it as, poker play, remember day trading it's not investing. It is a zero sum game. You are playing against other people. And so when it comes to day trading, there's no easy, fast fix. If there was, everyone would be millionaires, which isn't possible. So the only way to be successful in day trading is to be in the top echelons. And the only way to get that, and we've talked about this before, is putting in the time and becoming the absolute best at what you do. And there's no shortcut to that.
Yeah,
Thoughts, Jordan?
absolutely. And the other thing is, and the thing to take away is a lot of professional poker players, like, people go, oh, I never could be one. A lot of the professional poker players, yes, they know some math and the basic numbers and everything, but you don't have to be brilliant to be a poker player, right? You look at some of the poker players, or you watch some professional poker, and you go, how is that dude a professional poker player? It looks like he just got out of bed, right? And that applies here to trading as well, right? Like, the reason why they're professional players is they've honed their craft and they have spent their lives playing poker. Like, a lot of these guys, it's not like you get out of bed, and even if you're super smart, like take Magnus Carlsen, I think, like, he just started playing poker professionally, right? The guy is brilliant. He has photographic memory. He's able to recall games from when he's played every single game he's ever seen, essentially. Yet even he cannot be a professional, like, play against the best of the best yet, because it's not just about brains or how smart you are. He hasn't put in, as we said before, those times and those reps.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about managing risk and how that applies from poker kind of applies to the day trading world.
Yeah, so no matter how good you are, and no how matter good how good a professional poker player is, they know that statistically speaking, and just from everything they know, you are going to have losing streaks. Doesn't matter how good you are. And that's the same thing with trading, right? So we have to be able to manage our risks so that we can weather those losing streaks. Like Levi, you and I were talking recently, like we were having a losing streak and we were talking about it and talking about how do we manage our risks such that even if we do have this rough losing streak, we don't lose all the capital that we have, because again, losing streaks are
Mhm.
always going to happen. We are in a game of probabilities. And again, you flip a penny 20 times, it could land on heads 75% of the time. But as you flip that
Mhm.
penny 10,000 times, it's going to be much closer to 50-50. And it's exactly the same with trading and with poker.
Yeah, things tend to work. Another lesson to be learned from actually from the flipping a coin analogy is that people underestimate how likely losses consecutive losses are. Right. So this is, by the way, one of the reasons why you should never double up on your bets. So this is an old betting strategy. Well, if I lose, I'll just double up on my next one. If the chances of losing, so just a quick analogy, chances of losing 10 like coin flips in a row, that sounds ridiculous, right? You flip a coin, you lose 10 times in a row. It's only about 1 in 1,000, which isn't crazy small. Like it's reason like it happens. Losing streaks are somewhat likely, right? You're going to lose quite like, and losing 9 in a row is 1 in 500, right? And losing 8 in a row is 1 in 250. Like losing streaks happen. They're very common. And so if you're not protecting your capital, then you can be successful for years and then go belly up. And we've seen this happen in day trading. We see this happen in poker where someone is really successful and then you hear them about getting washed up and losing all their money and going bankrupt. And you go, how did that happen? Well, it happened because they didn't they didn't take into account losing for a long time over and over and over again. And if you don't take that into account, if you don't think, hey, I could just lose 10 trades in a row, just 10 trades in a row, no problem. If you're not taking that into account when you're managing your risk, you'll eventually fail. Eventually, the stats will go against you. Eventually, that coin flip, you're going to double up. Oh, it all worked out, right? Every time you lose your coin flip, you just double up and you bet twice the amount. Well, eventually, you're going to flip 10 in a row. You're going to lose 10 in a row, and you're going to be, you know, you're going to be mortgaging the house, trying to pay
Yeah.
your debts back.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
funny, what you telling that story, it kind of reminds me. I remember when you first started trading, how many trades did you lose one time in a row? It was an absolute, like statistically, what was it? Like it was a
It was
huge number.
Yeah, yeah. So when I first started, I thought I was paper trading, and I thought it was all that because really really doing great paper trading. This goes into our next point, but I was doing great paper trading, and then I started trading with real money, and I lost 30 trades in a row. By the way, risking take profit was 1.5 my risk, so it should have been like close to 1/3. I should have been winning about 1/3 of my trades. The probabilities are just ridiculous. I forget what exactly it is, but it's insane. Now that of course wasn't chance. I was awful. But still, even if I'd been just randomly trading, like the chances are ridiculous. It
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah.
Even when
It
you're
happens.
great.
Yeah.
If you're not protecting your capital, it happens.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, Levi here to ask you if you like what you're hearing and haven't already, consider subscribing or dropping a review. We put this information out completely free, and we'll never ask you to buy a course, pay for a Discord, or any of the other garbage you're likely to hear from everybody else. So, if you think we've earned it, we'd be in your debt.
And anyone who tells you that, that you can have a 90%, it doesn't matter what your win rate is. There will be times when you will lose 10 trades in a row. Just doesn't matter. Like that's going to happen.
A great example of this in poker is Daniel Negreanu was a very famous poker player, incredibly successful back in the early aughts, and then kind of the online world, that poker changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And he had a losing streak where he didn't win a major tournament for, I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a decade. And
Yeah.
he just recently, a couple of years back, won his first tournament in decades. And it's like, dang, right? What an amazing what an amazing testament to protecting your capital and being able to push through, recognizing that losing streaks do happen. This is talk about successful, one of the most successful poker players of all time. And to be able to push through that, it shows not just skill and patience, it shows risk management, which is
Yeah.
boring and people don't want to talk about.
And tenacity, right? Like he didn't give up. Like
Yeah.
he knew he had an edge. He knew he was good. And so he managed his risk and he kept going. Which I think is something really like most traders aren't successful, not because they don't have the ability to become good traders, but honestly just because they give up too soon. Again, anytime you talk to a professional trader that's been trading a long time and you ask them, hey, how long did it take you to get profitable? Anyone who's honestly worth their salt is going to tell you at least 2 to 3 years, like 2 to 3 years of trading
Takes
at
time.
least before you're making money. And a lot of times people are going to tell you more than that, if they're actually being honest with you. And so, Daniel, for instance, he knew he has an edge and he knew, hey, this is probabilities. I'm having a rough streak, but I'm just going to keep playing, managing my risk. And I know at the end, the numbers add up. Right. And I think that
Yeah.
takes us to, to another point
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
fact that poker is all about statistics.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the big one, right? And I this is kind of the one of the main points that I want to get through to people, which is poker is a game of statistics. A professional poker player doesn't care about this hand. They don't care about even this game necessarily, right? They just care about playing perfectly. They care about playing correctly because they know that the edge that they have through their skill, whatever that is, right? I'm not a professional poker player, but through their edge, they know that if they just play correctly, that whether or not they lose this hand, you can, anybody who's played poker, you can have a great hand. You can, you can have the aces, right? And somebody like gets, trip threes on the river, something ridiculous and crack your hand and you can lose. Like it doesn't matter how good of a hand you have, you can lose. And so professional poker players know that they just play correctly. They're going to lose hands, they're going to win hands, but they know that if they play correctly, eventually things will go their way. Tie this to day trading, you don't care about this trade. And this really helps. I think this really helped me get my mindset correct because if you're not caring about this trade, you're just caring about the long run. It helps take a lot of pressure off of this trade, helps get your heart rate under control, helps you get your mind in the correct spot.
Yeah, it does. It does because I mean, for instance, you and I, like just today, like you and I we were trading before this call, and we were trading together, kind of just watching the markets, and we saw gold just take off. Like we were saying, oh, should we get in or not? We didn't really like how things were looking, but we were like, it's probably going to go long, and and then it just shoots up, and it's easy, even after trading for a while, it's easy to go, oh, I should have gotten in. But then you think about that but then again, you think about it, and you're like, that one trade out of 10 years of trading means absolutely nothing, right? And that's the
Mm-hmm.
point where you get to have to. There's no shoulda, woulda, coulda, or oh, I could have taken that for 10R instead of just getting out after 3R or whatever. Like none of that matters because at the end of the day, a single trade, a single day, a single week in your trading career is nothing. It's what you're doing, year month after month after month, year
Mm-hmm.
after year that is really going to make or break you as a trader, just the same as it would with poker.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so there was an interesting thing that happened in poker went with the kind of rise of online play was that there was all of a sudden there's this kind of old guard of poker players that had been just crushing kind of these old school poker guys. And all of a sudden they all started losing to these like young guys that were coming from the online world. They all of a sudden started getting crushed. And like it was weird. It seemingly happened overnight. And it was because these guys coming from the online world, um, they were coming from a different kind of worldview on how poker worked, in that they cared much less about each individual hand. They cared
Played
much less
versus
about whether someone
statistics. Yeah.
cared much less about, yeah, exactly, about whether the guy was bluffing. They cared much less about reading tells. Not that that stuff wasn't important, but they came from all they cared about was the stats and playing GTO, game theory optimal, playing in a way that was unexploitable by other players.
Yeah.
And so all they care, because that's all that matters, right? When you're playing online, you don't see someone's face, you don't get to read them. You just play statistically perfect poker. And they started playing that way in across table events, and all of a sudden they were just mopping up because they came at it, and this is where it applies to day trading. They came at it from, hey, as long as I play correctly and play in a way that is that can't be exploited, eventually I'm going to win. It doesn't matter whether you're bluffing or whether you have some tell. They didn't care. They just came and played perfectly, and all of a sudden they were mopping up. And when it comes to playing the day trading world, getting your mind in the correct spot and recognizing, hey, I have an edge. You have to develop an edge, but I have an edge, and now I'm just going to play that. It helps you get in your mind in the correct spot, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the big takeaway from poker, I would say for traders mainly is what you said. Stop caring about this hand. Stop caring about this trade. If you're caring about the one trade so much, it also probably means that you're over leveraging. Stop over leveraging. Stop
Mm-hmm.
risking so much per trade that it actually matters to you, and get back
Right.
and dial it back to something where it's manageable, where you're risking a very small amount, so it doesn't matter whether you win or lose that trade, and focus on the skills of becoming a consistent trader with that amount. So then you can then simply increase that amount and get used to trading that amount and continue the process.